Record.
Record.
There we go. Okay, so today we're going to talk about, what's this called? Personal finance and
Personal finance and investing. Just kind of generally, I don't know. There's a couple of terms that we could go over and ways people can improve their finances. So,
well, let's talk about budgeting first and foremost.
Alrighty.
I think that you are going to have a hard time cutting expenses. You're going to have a hard time cutting your, what do I want to say? You're going to have a hard time cutting your expenses and shifting money around if you don't know where it's going. And it is very easy to, not know where it's going. It's just $1. It's just $5. It's, I just bought coffee one time today and it was $1.50. Or coffee gets such a bad rap, but let's use me and my own personal. So Carl noticed that I was going to the grocery store frequently. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. We started keeping track of every time we made a purchase. At any time, anywhere, we just wrote it down in a book. It wasn't like we were trying to, keep a certain amount of money, like only spend $1,000 this month or whatever. We just wrote down anytime we spent money. And it turned out I was going to the grocery store literally 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. And it was just to get this. But then when you're there, you get one more thing. And it's just to get that. But then when you're there, you get one more thing or three more things. And what's three more things? It's not that much. And then all of a sudden at the end of the month, you've spent $1,000 on groceries or whatever. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I think you're like, that makes perfect sense in your case. What you said there, I think is really important is you didn't know where all the money was going, right? And it was a problem because you were spending too much and you were having all these different issues. I think for people like me, I don't have that particular problem in the sense like I'm not going to go out and buy anything more than exactly kind of what I'm looking for when I go to the grocery store. It's kind of how I'm wired. But I do notice.
How do you do that? I would love to be able to figure that one out.
No, I really do. I kind of just go to the grocery store. I'm like, I'm going to get some apples. I eat a lot of apples. Like
Scott eats like 19 apples a day. Yeah, I'm not kidding. No joke.
I think I've probably eaten 10,000 apples in my lifetime, which is a lot of apples.
10,000 apples last year.
Maybe. But like, I just don't have that issue where I'm going to go out and spend money unnecessarily. I'm just so, I think, naturally frugal that budgeting for me isn't really that big of a key. But then,
congratulations, Scott, you win life, but not everybody's like you. So just zip it.
Yeah, but then when I work with a lot of these folks, I kind of volunteer at that one organization that helps people in financial crisis get a hold of themselves and stuff. And what's funny is people, these guys are making minimum wage or close to it. And they're able to start saving because we go through a budget exercise and we ask, hey, what did you spend in each of these categories over the last 30 days? Or if they can't even remember 30 days, we'll go with a week. And just by doing that exercise, they see, wow, I really lost $50 to $100 on these items that I really didn't need and I'm not even going to remember. And on the other hand, you also will come up with things like, hey, I spent $100 at, I was talking to one lady, it was called Joe's Crab Shack. And I was like, what are you doing spending this much money at Joe's Crab Shack every week? She says, that's where my whole family goes. All of my friends and family all meet there every single Friday during the week. And that's our favorite thing we do in the week. And I love it. It's just this big family, awesome time. We get a great deal on there. We have all the seafood that, I'm like, all right, cool. That's the point of budgeting is you see that's a huge expense and I'm going to keep that. But at least you understand, hey, that's where my money's going. That's what I'm going to prioritize. You can cut something else out.
Exactly. So the best part of budgeting, the most important part of budgeting is you see where all your money's going. And then you can analyze what's really important. You cut money where it doesn't matter. So you can spend it where it does. $100 at Joe's Crab Shack does not mean squat to me, but it means a lot to her and she wants to keep it in her budget. Great. Personal finance is personal. Your bills are your bills and you make money. You make, what is the word I'm looking for? Oh my God, what a brain fart. You make plans to spend your money in ways that are the most important to you. So if $100 at Joe's Crab Shack every single week is what you want to do, then make sure you have the money to do it. And once you do, maybe she doesn't go out to lunch at all during the week, so she can go to Joe's Crab Shack. That's a really great example of things that you need to be aware of. She wasn't telling you about it because she wanted to cut it out. She was telling you about it to convey to you how important it was to her. So yay. Yeah. Once I started figuring out, I wasn't spending a lot of money at the grocery store. I was spending $5, $15, $20. It's not that much money, but $20 every single day is, quick, do the math. That's like $120 over 6 days. I didn't need that. That's like a whole week of groceries. I don't need, and it was like, oh, well, this is on sale or that's on sale. But if you don't buy it on sale, or if you don't buy it, it's not like you're missing it. Like I was going to the scratch and dent aisle. I didn't really need that can of beans. I will use it eventually, but if I had to pay an extra 20 cents for it, down the road when it wasn't a scratch and dent item, and it doesn't affect me so much, but the whole going there every single day really does affect you, because I don't just go in for what I need. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. I think that's completely fair. And I think the biggest key is just paying attention. You just know where your money's going. You understand exactly how you're spending things and whether that was important to you or not. And that's how you can improve things. You can't improve on something if you don't track it. And the other half to budgeting, I think, is the income side of the equation. So a lot of people, I think, are like me, especially when it comes to people, some of the folks at the lower incomes scale. They're naturally frugal because they have to be. They just don't have enough income to cover all their expenses. But then when you actually take a look on the budgeting perspective at what's coming in, you can make improvements there as well. Sometimes you have issues like, man, I can't work because my kids need daycare, or I don't have the opportunity to get more hours at my current job. Well, often I've found that that's really the problem. Is no, you can't really cut back more on spending. Budgeting is not going to help you, because at best you can cut out $50 to $100 of your budget in the next 3 months because you got a lease locked in, you got a car payment, whatever. You need to go pick up more hours. Sorry, you need to go get another part-time job. You need to go do this if you want to prioritize your personal financial position. So it's just a good way to understand what levers you need to pull and crunch in order to really make a dent on your life. And that goes through the entire financial scale, from all the way from very low income to the white collar middle manager who really can't change his income and therefore needs to pull the levers on his budget. That's where he's going to make the big difference. And then all the way up to the financially free person who they could probably spend a lot and earn a lot more. It still doesn't make a big difference. They need to really focus on their investment returns. And that's where what budgeting's power really is, I think, is just allowing you to figure out financial in your life and your life effective.
So yeah, the increase your income or reduce your spending, either way, or both ways, if you've got the opportunity, both ways will just jack up your savings and get you to that financial place that you want to be at so much quicker. There is a blogger. He writes over at Budgets Are Sexy, and he has a list of more than 60. He calls them side gigs, and they're jobs that aren't, a part-time job may be a consistent thing. And this is more of like a one-off or a repeating on your scale. Repeating on your schedule, rather than, you have to work 15 hours a week at Old Navy or whatever. This is here's $100 to go promote, Verizon Wireless at the Blackhawks game, or I guess we're the Broncos now, or what are we, the Avalanche? I'm from Chicago, so I still remember all of those teams.
Yeah, we're the Avs.
Avs, yeah. So here's $100 to go promote Verizon at the Avalanche game, and you got to give out these little prizes or something, or talk to people about it. It's a nice one-off game. It's called a product. I should figure out what that's called. I've got a computer right here. Look at that. I can look it up on the internet. These interwebs are so great. Budgetsaresexy.com. Where is his list? 50 plus side hustles. It's now 60 plus side hustles. Brand ambassador. That's what it's called. It is a brand ambassador. And what you do is you make $15 to $50 an hour, plus you get free stuff just to promote a brand. Maybe you're promoting Coke. Maybe you're Coca-Cola, not cocaine. Maybe you're promoting Coke. Maybe you're promoting a computer company, or whoever it is. They're going to pay you a lot of money to talk about their product. So you just act excited about their product, and blam, here's a big bunch of money. He's got this list of a lot of these different side gigs. They're not a big commitment. They're not a huge time suck, but they pay really well.
Now, did I ever tell you about my attempts at side hustles from my house? I basically, I had a full-time job working in finance, and I was being really frugal, but it wasn't fast enough. So I was like, how do I make more money on the side? And I tried a bunch of different things. Probably some of those are on that list. I was a tutor for a high school kid. I taught him basic English, physics, which I'm not good at physics, so I don't know how I actually managed to tutor physics, but I think I did a decent job. They seemed to like me, and he passed. So I drove an Uber. I started a stupid T-shirt company. I have a lot of stupid T-shirts left if anyone's trying to buy one. But basically what I found is that for me, as kind of a white collar guy with a finance, a degree in economics and a job in corporate finance, that these types of side hustles really didn't move the needle very much for me. I maybe made $2,000 on all of that and put in hundreds of hours, maybe 100 hours. And it wasn't an effective use of my time. It wasn't materially driving the needle, right? Let's say I make $50,000 and I am able to, over the course of 3-4 months, make an extra $2,000 on the side. That's really only, what am I doing math here? 2% of my total income with all this extra effort. And I think, again, that goes back to what we were talking about before. The budgeting is what is going to make a difference on your financial statement. What's going to really make a difference in your life? And $2,000 can make a really big difference in someone's life who's making minimum wage and can use these side hustles to jumpstart something, get that emergency fund going, pay off that credit card debt, or really solve a pressing problem. But then once you get settled and start kind of, making a more moderate salary, those types of things really lose their appeal very quickly. And I think that they're very hard to stick with because of that for some folks, especially, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that topic?
No, that's true. That's true. And when I hear of somebody who has a corporate and a degree in accounting with a corporate finance job, I don't really think of them as needing to make extra money. I think of them more as the budget side. I mean, if you're making $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, you're spending every dime you have when you have financial problems. When you're making $20,000 a year, you're spending every dime you have and you have financial problems. And I don't want to say it's not your fault. It is, this sounds so snotty. It is your fault because you're only making $20,000 a year, but it's not your fault that you're spending all your money because you need that much to live. I mean, it's really difficult to live on less than $20,000 a year unless you're eating beans and rice and living in your parents' basement and riding your bike to work and, whatever. And if that makes you happy, yay for you, but you're probably not looking at our blog and our website if you are really happy with your $20,000 a year job and living in your parents' basement eating beans and rice.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And from my experience in working with some of these people, it seems to be that there's problems that follow them, right? So finance is a snowball that affects you in one direction or the other. If you have bad finances, it ruins your credit, which makes it harder to get a job, which makes it harder to pay your next bill, which further decreases your credit, which forces you to go, and it snowballs you into this bad position, right? And if you are, once you start getting the ball rolling, on the other hand, though, it snowballs away from it. And really all it takes to get away from a minimum wage job into something that pays decently well is a consistent, committed effort for 6 months or a little bit longer. But you can really make a huge change in both your income and your expenses, your credit score, all these different things in a very short period of time if you pull the right levers and are consistently approaching your job. And the other part of that is if you're making minimum wage or lower, you need to really take a harder stance. You need to understand, hey, I'm being taken advantage of. I'm being disrespected in making a minimum wage, and that's not going to continue in my life any longer. And I think that most of the time when you talk to people in that position, at least folks that sometimes people have mental problems or things like that, but at least folks that are competitive and ambitious, they kind of get going. It's a realization that, hey, I need to really actually take responsibility and not take the hand I've been dealt, because it's not correct. It's just not something you can sustain.
Some of the hardest work I ever did was when I was working for minimum wage, back when minimum wage was like nothing. When I first started working, minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. And that was some of the hardest work I ever did, was at that level. And once you put in the hard work in the learning phase, the schooling, the apprenticeship, all of that, once you put that hard work in, the work gets easier and the income increases. And I'm not standing on my feet all day, every day anymore. You are, because you choose a stand-up desk, and I don't. I choose a sit-down desk. Ooh.
Oh no, I said actually I'm sitting for now, but I might standing piece right now. This is so cool, the stand-up desk.
Yeah. So we have the option of a stand-up desk or a sit-down desk at work, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take the sit-down, please. I don't want to stand all day, every day. I've already had that job.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty healthy to switch between them is kind of what I've read. So I like to switch various points out the day.
That's also 12, so he still has all this energy as a 12-year-old rugby player who lives by himself and eats 400 apples a day. Maybe I should eat 400 apples a day, then I'll have the strength to stand up. But yeah, I worked at Dairy Queen. I worked at I've worked at a lot of places. I worked at like a lot of little like local places that nobody would know now. But I worked at a lot of restaurants, and that's hard work. Those waitresses are really busting their hump. Although anybody can be a waitress. It's not like it's a skilled job.
So here's another question. Waitressing and bartending and those types of jobs are in a lot of ways they're kind of like an hourly job. So there's different types of ways to earn money, right? Especially with a side gig. It's hourly work. I'm going to do something and get paid $15 an hour, $10 an hour. And then there's tip-based or performance-based pay work like waitressing and all that stuff. What are your thoughts on that for someone who is trying to make a little extra income on the side? Would you rather go with a little bit of hourly pay, or something that can scale like a waitressing or bartending gig where you make tips and can have that really good night?
I made a lot of money when I was a waitress. I made a ton of money. The bartenders made even more money. And if you can make a lot of money as a waitress, I mean, I remember making, $200 in a night when I'm 21 years old. That's a lot of money. And even if I go and spend it all tonight, tomorrow I'll make another $200. And, I'm not making thousands of dollars a week because I'm not working, that's Friday and Saturday night that you're making your $200 a night. But even during the week, you'd make $50 or $75. It kind of gives you a skewed sense of money, because I was living in my parents', not in their basement. I had my own bedroom, but I was living with my parents, and I was no kids, not married, so it was just, they didn't charge me rent. Whatever I made, I could spend on whatever. And boy, I wish I would have invested that. That would have padded the nest egg a whole lot better. But
yeah, I think we all wish we could have started investing in high school and all that stuff. Definitely.
If you're 17, start investing right now.
Yeah, I spent all my money in college on things that were not investments. So.
Apples.
And apples, yeah.
Yeah, apples and going to church, right?
Exactly. So
So what's another thing that somebody can do to improve their financial status, their financial picture? They've already taken the step of tracking their income, tracking their expenses. They've started looking at increasing their income through hard work or going back to school or something like that, but they're not there right now. And maybe they picked up a side gig. What's another thing they can do to help them really boost their financial place?
So let's say that let's use a kind of $50,000 a year white collar worker as kind of our example here, because that's the kind of target that I always write for. And what I think is interesting, I was just talking with Josh about this actually. There's 3 different types of income that you can really earn, right? One is, again, that salaried base pay that you earn from your day job. The second type is that performance-based pay. Maybe you're a salesman, real estate agent, or something along those lines. Maybe you have have an equity stake in your company or something like that. The third part is owning a business. So which of those 3 things is going to move the needle for you? Well, for most people in that salaried range, they're not really to quit their job and go start a business. So the question is, how can I take my salary, my salaried job, without having to work extra 40 hours a week to make that, extra $2,000 every 6 months, like I did? How can you really make a dent in your financial position with that type of income? And what I think the answer is leveraging your income. That income stream that you have, that salary base, is a really powerful tool for investing in things like real estate. You can use it to buy rental properties, personally guarantee the loan with the income from your job, the future expected income that you've got from your career. I think that's the most powerful thing about salaries that people really underestimate. It's funny because when I was applying for my home loan, I had no trouble. I sent in my W-2 and got a loan for hundreds of thousands of dollars from a bank. My boss, who pays me, had way more difficulty doing that because he's the owner of a business. It's not, he doesn't have a salary, right? He owns the business, which I find very interesting. I was able to leverage my position much more easily than people who have performance-based pay. By the way, performance-based pay, like a salesman or a real estate agent, you need to have 2 years of proven commissions or sales, bonus revenue that you can prove to the bank if you want to leverage that. So there's a long delay there, a substantial delay in starting or changing a career to do that, to kind of start to harness that leverage power that you have with a salary. So that's the first thing. So if you have the first,
experiencing that right now.
What'd you say?
We are experiencing that right now. My husband was a W-2 employee with a contracting company through the government for 11 years. And then this past year, a year ago, November, his company said, we don't want you to be a W-2 employee anymore. We want you to go corp to corp, which means we will pay your corporation, which will pay you. Mm-hmm. So we increase your hourly wage slightly, but now you are responsible for all your taxes and all of your everything else. Payroll taxes, the employer side, the employee side, all of it comes from us now. So right after that, we found a property that we wanted to buy. So we call up our loan guy. We've done 7 loans with this guy. We do still shop around for a loan, but nobody ever beats Todd's prices. So we just always go with Todd.
Can you link me with Todd?
I would happily link you up with Todd because he is awesome. I actually have 2. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I have 2 real estate deals going right now. Well, kind of. I have a real estate client, and then my sister is selling her house in a state that I'm not licensed in. So both of them are using Todd for their next place, just because I told them to, because he's so awesome. Once you work with Todd, you won't work with anybody else either.
I'm ready to work with Todd.
He's just great. So we called up Todd and we said, hey, Todd, we need to get a loan on this, except now Carl's corp to corp instead of having this W-2 income, but everything will be fine. It's the same company, yada, yada. He said, nope, sorry. Everything is not fine. And you will not be able to get a loan until you can show me 2 years of tax returns. So not only did we have to wait, I mean, we only had 1 year of tax returns. We haven't even done the tax returns yet for that year. But then we found a credit union that would be able to give us a loan sooner. They need 1 year of tax returns. So since it's not even the end of January yet, we haven't done our taxes yet. We are waiting. We can't get a loan, and we have enough stock that we could sell to buy the property, but we don't want to do that because then you miss out on all that growth. I'm trying to look up, what did Facebook close at today? They are going crazy in after hours trading. They are $112. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they crushed expectations apparently this quarter, right?
You know what's really interesting is that Apple is the highest valued company in the history of the world. And they break down their earnings based on what they're making. And they make $20 billion on services, which is almost nothing. I mean, they make $50 bajillion whenever they sell a phone cord. So $20 billion on services is next to nothing. Facebook, and I think Apple, what did Apple close at today? Facebook, their entire revenue. So Facebook closed at 112. Apple closed today at 97. And Facebook's entire revenue is $19 billion. Apple makes $20 billion in services, and they do nothing. That's a drop in the bucket for them. Facebook makes $1 billion less, and their stock is $112 a share closing today, up in after hours trading, up $3 in after hours. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's down 23 cents in after hours.
We can talk about investing all day long, and investing with Facebook and Apple, the problem is it's not about how much money they made last quarter or last year or in all their history. It's about how much money they're going to make over the next few years.
And that's true. We are starting to divest ourselves of our Apple holdings because it is. We bought them when they were close to the bottom, and then they're now such a large portion of our portfolio. You have to rebalance, and we haven't rebalanced in a while. So we're slowly but surely selling.
Yeah, it's a good question. And no one knows what the future earnings are going to be. It's anyone's guess, and that's the whole game when it comes to that.
If only Doc Brown could make a time machine.
No, but I wanted to go back to what you were saying earlier about the income problem, right? You had the income coming in from an employer, and you switched to a corp to corp payment, and you can't leverage that, right?
Not a little, not even like half.
Mm-hmm. So the answer to what you should do in that situation is there's a big advantage in that corp stuff in getting your income through a corporation, in the sense that you can expense lots of items that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. You have tax advantages, a whole host of opportunities and abilities to scale that only business owners have access to that W-2 employees really don't. But you lose that ability to leverage your income. So
you lose that ability to leverage your income to buy a property. Mm-hmm. But we have a solo 401k.
Yep.
And the solo 401k is a lot like a regular 401k in that you can contribute $18,000 per person. Conveniently, I also work for his company. I am the secretary and treasurer and vice president, and I do get paid a salary from the company.
And chairman of the board.
So, I'm sorry?
And you're chairman of the board, right?
And I'm chairman of the board, yes. So I've got a salary from that company, which conveniently comes out to that $18,000 a year that I then put into the 401k. Mm-hmm. But when you have a solo 401k, the company can match up to 25% of your salary. So we are putting away significant quantities of pre-tax money, which is twofold. It grows, and I don't have to pay taxes on it. So I've got this big investment available through this solo 401k. Mm-hmm. And then I'm deferring all these taxes. Basically, I'm paying nothing. We've got a visitor.
Oh, nice.
Our Joseph Stewart, but where that money is in the stock market isn't still risky. Mm-hmm. Well, yes, the stock market is risky. Past performance is not indicative of future gains, yada, yada, yada. I'm not a lawyer. Don't take this as legal advice, whatever. But if you look at the historic stock returns, they go up. They go down and down and up, but they go this way. And eventually the dips are going to come back up.
Yeah, I think the other part of the question is, where are you going to invest the money? Well, there's lots of different ways you can invest it. You can invest it in bonds, stocks, real estate, all that junk. But the point that I think Minnie's trying to make with what we're talking about right now is she has her husband gets paid through a corporation. He used to be a W-2 employee, and then he moved, started his own corporation, and gets basically the same salary, but paid to his corporation. And what that allows him to do is set up this solo 401k. And the advantage of the solo 401k is that you can put a lot more money into the solo 401k than you can into an employer 401k if you're an employee. For example, I think my limit is $12,000. I think your limit is probably close to $50,000 or maybe a little bit less, but that allows you to shield a lot more money from paying taxes today, and it can grow tax-free. So where you invest that, whether stocks, real estate, et cetera, is one thing, but the advantages from a tax saving perspective are really huge with that plan. But I think going back a step further, what we were talking about, being able to take your W-2 income and leverage it to buy real estate, what you can do with this kind of corporation setup is, my recommendation, the way I would like to do things is I would remain a W-2 employee, leverage up, get some real estate, and then switch over to that corporate position, take advantage of the tax breaks, and build up your solo 401k. What are your thoughts on that, Mindy?
That's kind of exactly what we did. We flipped a lot of houses, and when you don't have money in your house, when you're waiting to buy the next house, we would put it into the stock market. So my husband is a computer guy. We're very tech heavy. Oh my goodness. If there was a tech crash, we would see significant losses. But we are trying to balance out our portfolio by looking for homes to purchase. And we live in the Colorado area where real estate is just ridiculously hot and you can't find anything. Homes go on the market. They're immediately under contract for over asking price, no contingencies, no inspections, no nothing. And people just buy them and they can't get enough of them. Oh, cash.
It's a pretty good market to flip it.
It's an excellent market if you're a seller, but it's a horrible market to be a buyer in. So even ugly properties are not, they're not going for less than full retail price. And there's not a lot of room to make your money right now. I also happen to believe in this area. So I think it's just going to continue to go up like the stock market. And, the stock market has been bloated for a while. I do think that we are going to see some sort of correction. But again, it's going to eventually go back up. In my opinion, I'm not a financial planner, but I think that there's, it's always going to go up eventually.
I think the big question with stocks. We'll get to your question in one second here. But I think the big thing that people have with stocks is, hey, yeah, what happens if it goes down? I lose everything, right? Well, the perspective that we're looking at, I think our timelines are very long term, right? They're 30 years, 50 years. And over that period, yes, we're going to have those big ups and downs, but we're going to be much better off over the long period by taking that, historical 11% return. If that continues, even if we lose 50% a few times, overall, we'll be at a way higher position financially over the long term than we would if we invested in mutual funds or bond funds, things like that return less than the overall stock market. So
right.
What was the question?
Right. So people talk a lot about incorporating yourself. If I'm still a W-2 kind of employee, is there a benefit? Well, there can be. If you have your own corporation and you earn any kind of salary from that, you can count that as your income, and that then you start getting all of these self-employed benefits. But it's not like you can earn $1 and then you can invest $18,000 in your 401k. You have to earn the amount of money that you're putting into your 401k.
Mm-hmm.
As an employee of my husband's company, I earn $18,000 a year. And what a coincidence, that's the limit for 401k contributions this year. And that's actually the limit for you too, Scott. So don't think that you can only put in 12. You can put in all 18.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, Yeah, things really start to get interesting too once you get employees in your company and you have a kind of more of a real business rather than kind of a sole proprietorship where it's just kind of you and a family member. Once you have employees and a sizable payroll, then you can really start taking advantage of lots of those benefits in terms of really maxing out a 401k. We can talk about pension plans, things like that, that are really powerful. So there's a lot of, I would say for most people, the W-2 is probably the best way to go. It's just much simpler. It's much more standard. If you want to do things like buy a house, buy a car, get a credit card, things like that, the W-2 income is going to be simpler. But once you've established yourself, once you have the credit card, you've got the mortgage, you maybe have a rental property or two that you're using your W-2 income to kind of qualify for, you got your car, then maybe it's time to think about going to that going from W-2 to a corporation or sole proprietorship where you can start taking advantage of other things like tax breaks, solo Ks, all that stuff.
And I believe you can do two at the same time. I believe he can keep his W-2 income and also have some sort of earned income. You do need to earn the income. It's not like you can just say you got it. I believe the company has to file a tax return itself, consult a tax attorney or a CPA. They'll know more. Oh, we should call Linda Wygant. She'd be a good person to interview too. I should put her on our list. It's not like I can run a company where the income comes from my W-2. Well, you could start a blog. Do you have an area of expertise? Oh, Steve Harvey joined. Is it that Steve Harvey? I bet you get that all the time. And you can start a blog. Let's say you are a Beanie Baby collector. I don't know. You can start a blog about Beanie Babies, and maybe you put ads on your blog about Beanie Babies, and maybe that income starts coming in. Show me Beanie Babies. I don't have any Beanie Babies right now. But yeah, so Scott is a huge Beanie Baby collector. So he has a blog about Beanie Babies, and he makes $10,000 a year. Then that income on his Beanie Baby blog can go directly into his 401k, his solo 401k. If he made more, let's say next year he makes $20,000 as a Beanie Baby blogger. So he puts his 18 into his solo 401k, and then he has $2,000 left over. His company can match up to 25% of his income into his solo 401k. So then he puts all $20,000. And I don't know what the total limit is. I think it's 53. Oh no, maybe that's for two people. $53,000. I can't remember.
One thing to keep in mind though, when you're doing all of this, is what you're doing is you're basically taking your income and you're taking it from you're taking it pre-tax before you can spend it, before you can access it and use it to improve your life, and putting it into a retirement account in all of these cases. So we believe, a lot of people believe, that that's an advantage because you don't pay taxes today and you can let it grow tax-free. When you retire, you can pull it out, and at the time when you retire, you're probably not making a salary. You're probably not, owning necessarily your business. You're assuming that your income is going to go down once you've retired. So you're going to pay less taxes when you pull it out of your retirement account than you would today if you didn't contribute it. So I'm not sure. I mean,
you're in a lower tax bracket. So presumably you're in a lower tax bracket when you are retired. Mm-hmm. Another option I really love is the Roth IRA. That is one of my favorites because you pay taxes. You pay taxes when you put it in, mm-hmm. but then it grows tax-free. And if it's growing tax-free for 2 years, that's not really going to do much for you. But you start it when you're 20 years old, you're 25 years old. Know any 25-year-olds, Scott?
Well, it's a good point. The reason I invested in it through a Roth IRA and not through a 401k, which is tax deferred, is because I believe that when I retire, I'm going to have a higher income than I have today. I believe that I'm going to own lots of real estate, maybe some small businesses. I'm going to have a sizable stock portfolio. I'm going to receive dividends, passive income, business income, etc. And so I think that today is $50K. I think that when I retire, it might be $1 million. That's the goal, right? I'm aggressive. I want to go big. And so I'm betting by putting my money in the Roth that I'm going to make more money in 50 years than I am today from my passive stuff. So
Scott is 25 years old and smarter about money than just about anybody that I know. So yeah, when he says he's going to make $1 million when he retires, I totally believe it.
Well, Mindy's already, pretty much there. So she's.
I don't make $1 million a year.
Well, no, that's a pipe dream. But
I know we look similar, but Scott and I are actually significantly different in age.
I'm 12. He's 25. So.
Scott's 25 and Mindy's not.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. But yeah, Scott has a good point. I am in a great position to put in more money into my Roth IRA because I am going to, at some point, retire and not have $1 million a year in income. And Scott is just getting started. And if that's his goal, I bet he makes it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know how much I'm going to make, but I assume that at some point I'm going to cross that passive income threshold, and I'm going to continue building businesses because why not, right? And, if I don't have to, I don't want to just kind of sit on the beach and sip margaritas. That might be fun for a few months, but I always want to kind of progress. It's constant growing is kind of what makes me happy, what makes me tick. So.
And I'm sorry, what is your plan after age 70? Sit around and play World of Warcraft until you're dead?
Yes. So video games is a huge thing for my generation. We have the ability to, there's a lot of video games that I would have liked to play as a kid, today, but I got, the whole retirement time. You can click the mouse and play with the controller. So
yes, I think you're going to be so busy making copious amounts of money and being successful that you'll be like, yeah, I'll just start World of Warcraft next year. And on and on and on. Mm-hmm. But hey, everybody can have a goal. I would love to sip margaritas on the beach for a very long time.
So Joseph asks a question. He says, with investments in stocks, are there options where you can withdraw a monthly amount? AOE is better than WoW. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I would agree with that. So with investments in stocks, are there options where you can withdraw a monthly amount? Well, the answer to that question is that some stocks produce dividends, and those dividends are usually distributed on, they're distributed based on the, decision of the board of directors. So the owners of the company or people appointed by the owners of the company decide when it's a safe time to distribute dividends. So let's say the company made $50 million last year. The management of the company might say, okay, we only need $25 million to run the business next year. We'll give the other $25 million back to the stockholders, the people like you who own the investment, and that will be on based on their decision. So usually, I think it's quarterly, and it might be every share gets $1. So if you own 100 shares, you get $100. If you own a million shares, you get $1 million, and that'll be the dividend payment. So those dividends will vary, and those payout dates will vary depending on the company. So it's up to you to kind of determine that. Which stock you want and whether you want dividends regularly or whether you want to bet on appreciation and those types of things. Does that answer your question, Joseph?
What's AOE?
AOE is Age of Empires.
Oh, okay. I get World of Warcraft, but I don't.
So there's no real way to turn a stock investment into actively passive income. Well, that's what is passive income, right? Passive income is a kind of misnomer because there's no such thing as truly passive income necessarily. I mean, you can buy a treasury bond from the government over 30 years and they'll pay you the interest. But all these, if you buy a stock, you don't have to do anything and just sit back and collect. But someone else is going to manage that investment and make decisions. So you're not going to have control over when you get that income necessarily. Real estate, on the other hand, which is something me and Mindy really take an interest in, you have a lot more control over that income stream, right? You can buy a property that's going to produce rent on a monthly basis, do work, and turn it into something that produces income. But is that passive? Yeah, it's pretty passive. It's more passive than working a job and spending 40 hours a week, but it's not truly passive. You still got to bill the tenants, manage the property, or at least manage the manager of the property. So there's no real way to have truly passive income and get great returns at the same time. But yeah, you can definitely have more passive income than other sources. So
Yeah, I completely agree with Scott. Pretty much anything he says, I completely agree with. But there's no real way to turn a stock investment. I'm trying to think, other than the dividend, there's really not a way to turn. And the dividend is sort of passive income. There are a lot of people who have who's plan their whole investment strategy on dividends, but I would rather have the appreciation of the stock than the dividend. There are some stocks that appreciate greatly and then also pay a dividend, but they're few and far between. Apple has a dividend right now just because they are so flush with cash.
I think another part of it is, how much money do you really need from your passive income, right? How much cash flow do you need to sustain your life? Let's say you get to $5,000 in cash flow from real estate and dividends per month. Well, what are you going to do with another $5,000, right? Maybe it's better, instead of collecting another $5,000, just have a property that's appreciating $5,000. You can take loans off of that. You don't really need the passive income, and often you can get great returns from investments that appreciate in value, but don't necessarily spin off cash flow on a monthly or regular basis. So let's see what your question is here, right? And the income from, say, real estate, where it would come monthly, I can choose to live off 25%, invest the other 75%. Yeah, I mean, with any passive income, you can, that's the point of passive income and investment income, is to decide what I want to do with it. You can either reinvest it, which is what I do, especially for all the years that I plan on working. But then once you retire or achieve your financial goals, you're obviously going to want to spend some of that on luxuries, living it up, or just maintaining your lifestyle. And
once you have the money to spend, it's not such a big deal. You know, $30,000 on a car when you're 20 years old and you're making $40,000 a year is a ridiculous purchase. But $30,000 on a car when you are 45 and you're making $100,000 a year and you've got your retirement completely saved up isn't such a big deal. So you want to save and act frugal in the beginning of it, and then in the beginning of your life and your income, and then just, you know, not even scale up really. I mean, what do you need? How much and why do you need it? You know, well, I have a crappy old $40 purse that I got at Target, and it holds my stuff. That's what I need it to do. But I also don't care if somebody sees the name Coach on it or not, which they don't, because I got it at Target for $40. They don't sell $40 Target purses or Coach purses at Target. But other people really want to spend. My sister spent $400 on a purse. I thought, oh my God, how can you spend $400 on a purse?
Yeah, the whole personal finance flow is another thing we just touched on there. It's when you're young, like me in my position, where I don't really need a lot of things to be happy and healthy and have a good time. I don't have a family to take care of and those types of things. So I should be, and I think I am, really frugal for now, building up these passive income streams and improving my professional skill set so that I can really, build a good financial foundation for later in my life when I will want to buy that really nice car, a really nice house on the hill, send the kids to the great school district, college, go to college, things like that. So I think it's that whole scale, right? Start saving now, building passive income. And then as you have more and more passive income and more disposable income, buy back those luxuries and those other things that you want, or go totally passive and kind of just live off that and do whatever you want all day. Yeah. Freedom is what a lot of people will call it. So
I'm going to toot Scott's horn right now because Scott's 25. I have to keep reminding myself. I actually used to tell him, I can't believe you're 26. He's like, actually, I'm 25. I'm like, but Scott bought a duplex, which is two houses that are stuck together. And he lives in one and he rents out the other. And he looked at the city that he wanted to live in, and he said, wow, it'd be really nice to live in the downtown area. But that costs, I don't know, $80 bajillion, and I don't want to spend that much money. If I go slightly north into an area that is, it can only improve. The way that the city is growing, it will only improve and improve he's in the path of improvement. So he bought in this neighborhood that is slightly sketchy. I could probably walk around there at night by myself, but Scott's a big guy. You can't tell from this picture, but Scott's a really big guy and he plays rugby. So if you want to take him on, you're going to lose. Yeah, Scott. Ooh. Yeah, he's kind of a badass. So, he bought in this property already. It's appreciated. Oh my goodness, another.
Really? What position?
I never even heard. I had heard of rugby. I'd never seen.
Nice.
Oh, nice. He's a hooker. Great. I love hookers. I don't know what the positions are. I have never met anybody who plays rugby. I meet Scott. Scott plays rugby. All of a sudden, everybody I know is a rugby player. It's very funny. But so Scott lives a number 10. Really, you've got a position called hooker and a position called number 10.
Well, the numbers really define the position. It's not like football where anybody, quarterback can be 3, 8, 9, 18, whatever. Rugby, 10 plays the same position. He always does. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So anyway, back to
or come to my match, Mindy. We'll always provide free booze for all of the audience members that come to watch. So.
Oh well, hey, let me know when it is. I will be there. So Scott bought this property slightly outside of where he wanted it to be. I mean, you're a mile from where you really wanted to be. Mm-hmm. If money was no object, you're like a mile north. Drinking team had a rugby problem. That's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. So this small change really changed his whole financial outlook. He could have spent like $350 on a 1-bedroom condo in the downtown area. But by going a mile out, he spent less money, got twice as much space. He lives in one half, rents out the other. All the rent. So he lives in one of the 2 bedrooms in his side. He rents it out to a friend, the other bedroom. So the friend's rent and the rent from the other side actually covers his mortgage payment. Mm-hmm. So Scott essentially lives for free because he's a mile north. So he made a small sacrifice and now he's reaping these benefits. What is it already reappraised at enough to get out of PMI?
Well, yeah, not only that. So yeah, I have the mortgage covered, but don't forget that they're also paying down the mortgage. So my principal balance is going down and the property is in a good spot in Denver, and Denver's been really a hot market this last year and really gone up a lot. So yeah, like when you said, it reappraised I bought it for $240, it reappraised for $250 a couple months later, maybe 5-6 months later, which is a lot in 6 months. I wouldn't be surprised if I made it nice and pretty and cleaned it up. I'm not the cleanest guy all the time, that I could get close to $275, $300 for it, in terms of getting it refinanced. So it's been really powerful for me. Now, a lot of people, this can work for anybody. If you can buy a house, you can buy a duplex in a fairly close location and rent it out in most major cities. Not all, but most, I think. Mindy, on the other hand, let me toot Mindy's horn for a little bit here. Something that really works well for people in a different life position where they have a family and don't really want to live in a duplex next to tenants they have to manage and things like that. Mindy buys houses that need some work and need some repair, fixes them up and flips them. And this is really powerful because you can keep your family and your home, add a lot of value to it, get a lot of equity. And then when you go to sell a personal residence, you don't pay any taxes. So let's say that Mindy bought a house for $250K to live in and raise her family. Well, she fixes it up over 2 years. She loves fixing things up. She's great with power tools, unlike me. I am a total wuss when it comes to construction. But yeah, she's really tough and great with repairs and stuff like that. And you go to sell this thing. Let's call it for $400,000 2 years later. Well, you've just made $150,000, and you've made it completely tax free. So that's the equivalent of making $100,000 salary both of those years. So it's not quite the passive monthly income that you were talking about earlier from like dividends and stock investments, or even passive real estate like my rental income. But it's a really powerful way to build wealth in big chunks, with just by integrating your living situation into your wealth building process. Yeah,
tax-free wealth. And but it is, it's a lot of work. And we did this a lot more before we had kids. But once we had kids, it's a little more difficult because, you're doing drywall. We're doing full gut rehabs. We're We are creating, we're redesigning the space. We're adding bedrooms. We are, our boss just joined. Hi, Josh.
We have another rugby player in the audience, by the way.
Yes, another rugby player. I never knew any rugby players, and all of a sudden you meet Scott and everybody plays rugby. So we are beautifying the neighborhood. We're helping the neighborhood come up, increasing value in the neighborhood, but we're also taking something really ugly and making it beautiful. So that's really awesome, a sense of accomplishment. But also it is very draining on your system when the entire house is a mess and you don't have any control over it. And, but then when you go to sell it, here's $100,000 for free.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I mean, that's the big thing, right? So it is a pain, right? It's not as great as living in a nice new house that's all fixed up and ready to go, that you can just kind of move in and live happily ever after. And you have to do some work, but you have to weigh that work against the income that you're producing, right? Again, using the example of a $250,000 house, you fix it up for 2 years, maybe spend $20,000 on materials and a bunch of weekends working on it. And then you've made $150K, sell it for $400, make $150K. That's $75 a year. Again, equivalent of a $100,000 salary. I'll put up with a lot of pain in the butt for a $100,000 salary on top of my salary.
Well, exactly. And it doesn't take 2 whole years to fix up a house.
Well, yeah. To answer Joseph's question, yeah, you can definitely use the money that you've made from fixing up the house to buy a bigger and nicer one, or potentially a house in a better location. Real estate's this game of kind of scaling up over time. So maybe it's a $250,000 house that you fix up and sell for $400 this time. Maybe the next one's a $500,000 home that you fix up and sell for $800K. So it's
you just keep flipping those 250 houses.
Mm-hmm.
So you sold 250 and you bought it for 250. You sold it for $4. You buy another one for 250. You sell it for $4, and pretty soon you don't even have to get a loan anymore. You can do this as your whole job.
I think I just am so convinced that real estate has to be a part of your financial plan if you're really aggressive about personal finance, in the sense that you are going to have to use part of how you live as part of your financial plan. You can't get those types of returns in the stock market. You have to kind of leverage what you're living in and what housing is a fixed expense. So if you can turn it into something that actually makes you hundreds of thousands of dollars, wow, then you've got, thanks for the love, Joseph. If you can take housing from a fixed expense that's costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, all of a sudden, now you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, then you've really got a powerful investment there that's much more powerful than things you can do in the stock market again, or in other types of investments. How do you get started when the bank says no? Well, that comes back to very basic personal finance, all the way back to full circle to where we started with. To get started in real estate, to buy a home is not a difficult task. We have to accept that because there's 75 million homeowners in the United States. So all you have to do to buy a home is put yourself in a position financially to get a loan from the bank in the amount that would help you buy properties in your area. And that means you have to have a stable income, one. You have to have a sizable amount of savings, and you have to be pretty consistent with your finances. So you have to have a decent credit score. All those things can be accomplished in a year or less by most hardworking people. Just getting a basically good job, continuing to work hard, practicing sound financial planning, budgeting, and getting together that $5,000, $10,000 that you might need for a down payment on a big house. Lazy people. What's lazy people? Well, I still think that my strategy is a good one for lazy people too, because, guess what? I'm living in a duplex and making, lots of money every month with doing very little work managing tenants. I mean, it was hard work at first, but, it's definitely, it's definitely not as hard as other types of income. So definitely worth the initial upfront.
It's a lot easier than a $40 a week job, right?
Yes, for sure.
How much time do you spend on your tenants every week?
So I think I spend about 8 hours. So I spend a lot of time as a homeowner maintaining the property, like mowing grass, shoveling sidewalks when it snows.
Which you would do even if you didn't have tenants.
Yeah, so any homeowner would have to do that. But as far as managing the tenants goes, I'm fortunate in the sense that my tenants have been great. I did a good job, I think, screening them. I think I reach out once or twice a quarter, probably once every couple months, and ask them how things are going. Can I help you out with anything? And they're really, they've been great. They pay on time. They're my neighbors, so I say hello to them, but managing them has not been difficult really at all for me. I know that won't be the case forever with real estate investing, but so far it's been a great experience.
So Scott, how did you place those tenants? Did you just go with your gut, or did you screen them?
Well, I screened them. I put an ad out on all the different websites. It was called Postlets, and it pushes to like Zillow and Trulia and all that stuff. And I got a lot of applicants because I priced my property at $100 below market rent. And the reason I did that is because I wanted lots of applicants, because these are not just tenants, they're my neighbors. I don't want bad neighbors. So I was able to really screen a lot of these guys for, the traits that I really wanted in a neighbor. And that I think was a really big part of my success so far in not having issues. The question here is, would you consider a property management company? The answer is definitely no, not right now. Managing tenants right next door is really easy, at least for me, compared to a property that's across town, right? Property management company is going to have hundreds of properties. They're going to have to go and drive to properties. If my tenants have an issue, I say, okay, I'll go check it out after work, or I'll go check it back when, even if I'm away skiing for the weekend or something like that, I can say, oh, I'll go check it out when I get back from my trip. It's really easy. It costs me nothing to walk out my door into their property, take a look at what their problem is, and then make the correct call, whether that's call the plumber or fix it myself. So, which happened once. They had a leaky pipe. I looked at it, said, okay, well, this is probably going to cost me $100. I called my plumber and he fixed it. That's all a property management company would do, except they're going to charge me $250 to do it.
Right.
Yes, this is my only property. I'm planning to buy another one in the near future here. Actually, I offered on one last week. The inspection didn't come back very well, though. There's a lot of problems I'm not sure I want to handle. So we're going to get some estimates on that and take a look. But
Let's talk about your problems after. Scott and I work together at a place called BiggerPockets.
Mm-hmm.
Mindy can fix it. Yeah, not if it's plumbing.
Mindy could fix it.
I'm not. You can't see my big, giant, non-arm muscles. I am not strong enough to do plumbing myself. I usually make my husband do it. But yes, I'm going to install wood floors in Scott's house. I'm going to show him how to do that, and I'll send you a link to that because now you're following me on Twitter. Thanks, or Blab or whatever. So yeah, back to your question about what is BiggerPockets, Scott? What? BiggerPockets is the
home for real estate investing online
social platform.
Yeah,
So BiggerPockets is a place for real estate investors to talk and learn. It is a completely free website, although there are levels of paid membership that get you access to more sections of the website. Mm-hmm. Or more access to. Like, we have some calculators that help you figure out if this deal is a good idea.
And you use the calculators for free. It's just once you start using them a lot, we charge for the service because that's our business model. But we have a lot of great free content on how to become generally successful in real estate investing. And then we also have a great forum with 1.75 million forum posts. Again, talking about all these different issues in real estate and with lots of local investors. There's 400,000 real estate investors on the platform right now.
435, Scott.
I'm sorry. Whoops. Excuse me. But they're all talking about issues in real estate that we can't talk about here. I don't know San Francisco very well or New York very well. I don't know those markets. But the guys on BiggerPockets, the professionals that are there looking to network and find lawyers, accountants, CPAs, partners, raise money and all that, they are there and they'll answer questions about, is this neighborhood a good one? Is this going to go up in value? What should I charge for pet rent? All those questions we can't answer, economically here from our blog, they're answering in the forums. So it's a good place to check out if you are interested in real estate investing. So, and listen to the podcast. It's Josh and Brandon, who are awesome. They're awesome hosts. They interview a new investor every week, and you just learn a lot. It's like going to school just on the way to work or, while you're doing chores or things like that. And I don't know, I feel really experienced. So
crowdfunding real estate. Yes. One of the problems with crowdfunding real estate right now is there are very few options available for non-accredited investors. An accredited investor is someone who has $1 million or more in assets investable income, something, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But $1 million is the big number. And there's really, what is Fundrise is the only one that does it for less, or is there somebody else?
Well, so the crowdfunding real estate space is a subsection of equity crowdfunding, right? So there's crowdfunding like Kickstarter, and Kickstarter is where you kind of fund a project and you don't really expect a return. You're just kind of helping someone make, something cool. Equity crowdfunding, which is a type of crowdfunding that's used in real estate crowdfunding, is where you invest and expect a return on investment on a company or investment that's not publicly traded. So, for example, what a lot of people kind of assume in this is, I'm going to get a small equity position. I'm going to put in $1,000 or $5,000 into that new huge apartment complex that's going up in my city. Well, that's not what's actually happening in most cases. There are a few platforms that are doing that, like Fundrise. But what's really what I've seen so far that's really taken off in crowdfunding is in the lending space. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into a crowdfunding platform. You're going to give them $5,000, and that's going to be part of a chip in this loan pool, and they're going to lend to someone like Mindy who's doing a flip. And why that's great for investors right now is because that flip is collateral. It collateralizes the loan. It's a much safer thing than an equity stake in a large apartment building. Also, with large apartment buildings and commercial real estate, the exit, the time to when you make your money is a long time down the road. It's not necessarily going to be next year or next, in 2 years. And equity crowdfunding people, if you're investing $5,000, you may not be able to get your money out when you want it to. Hello.
So. That's my baby. Okay, go. We're almost done, sweetie. So our Joseph Stewart. Okay, please don't interrupt. Our Joseph Stewart, if you would like to, thank you. She's adorable. You want her? If you come to BiggerPockets and you sign up for an account, which is free, by the way, you will become colleagues with me, and we can chat more about this. I will give you a link to Scott, and you can be his colleague too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as far as crowdfunding goes, like Scott's, you had a question about, so part of your income from the neighbor would go to someone else. Yes and no. So the crowdfunding gives you the loan instead of Scott going to a mortgage company and getting his loan that way. He goes to the crowdfunding platform, and then he pays them back just like a mortgage. So, and the answer, I think the overall question you're asking is, where's that financing coming from? Where's the investment going, right? Well, as far as a loan goes, I'm not going to raise money via crowdfunding. I'm just buying a house with a loan from the bank like any other homeowner would do, right? A crowdfunding investment is usually more risky. They're not going to be able to vet people as well as the banks. They're not as big as the banks. So I'm just going to get a better deal from the bank most of the time. I'm really not going to take advantage of crowdfunding at this stage. Where crowdfunding is really effective is for people that are flipping lots of houses, right? They need someone to loan them millions of dollars, large amounts. But big banks won't do that because they don't fit into their mold, right? They're not they don't have a good credit score necessarily, or they have too much debt for their income. So what they do is they go to these crowdfunding portals, and the crowdfunding portals can raise basically unlimited money from all these investors, and then they can loan on to this guy who's doing 30 flips at once. He's got a big business that flips houses. And so this guy is taking big loans, flipping houses, paying them off, and the crowdfunding investors are happy because they're getting a return. The crowdfunding portals like Fundrise and other ones like Realty Shares and Patch of Land, these are companies that I work with. They're taking this money from these investors, making sure the flipper is a quality guy and allowing this to scale into a big lending business. And I think that's where crowdfunding has really been successful thus far. And it hasn't really taken off in the way that you initially think, which is, I'm going to get a chance as a little guy to invest in that really big apartment complex downtown, or the big new commercial building, or the skyscraper. That's just not what's happening right now. So, Zach joined. Welcome, Zach.
Hello, Zach.
Is that Zachary, Zach? Is that Zach Hoffman?
Zach Hoffman. Zach Hoffman's giving you a lot of love.
At WMUH. Okay, what's WMUH, Zach? Scott, wow, holy cow. Thanks, Zach. So it's a radio station. Where is this radio station? What city? But I think that Scott and I are going to start wrapping this up for today. In Allentown, Pennsylvania. I love Pennsylvania. You guys under 50 feet of snow right now?
Is that near Bucks County? Yeah, my dad grew up there. So, I don't know. My grandma was the county commissioner for a while. It was kind of a small world.
It is a small world.
They're just continuing who you love.
Finally, I win over Scott. Yay. Thanks, Zach. I'll give Scott.
I think we're going to have to start wrapping up here, though, get back to work.
Yes. So Scott and I are going to chat again probably next week, and I will send you a note, our Joseph Stewart and Zach Hoffman 610, to join us.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this and learned a little bit. We love just kind of BSing around about personal finance and stuff. So.
Hey, I love talking about personal finance and real estate. So if you ever have a question, hit me up, Mindy at BiggerPockets.com. Hit up Scott
at BiggerPockets.com if you want to talk to the 12-year-old.
Yes, he's 12, soon to be 13. So, okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us. And our Joseph Stewart, I look forward to getting your note that you are now a member at BiggerPockets. So we'll talk soon. Bye, Scott. Thanks.
See you later.